chosen one. Not every battle leaves visible scars. Some battles are fought in silence, behind forced smiles, unanswered prayers, and nights when nobody knew how close you came to giving up. If that sounds familiar, stay with this message until the very end, because what you're about to hear isn't about luck. It isn't about coincidence, and it certainly isn't about being stronger than everyone else. It's about discovering why some people are entrusted with burdens that seem impossible to carry, and how those burdens can shape a life in ways no one expects. There are moments when it feels as though the world keeps moving while you remain standing in the same place. You watch doors open for others, you celebrate their victories, yet quietly, you wonder why your own path seems filled with waiting, uncertainty, and questions that never receive immediate answers. That feeling can become exhausting, not because you're weak, but because carrying hope for a long time requires a different kind of strength, the kind that cannot always be seen, the kind that grows in silence. Perhaps you've asked yourself, why has this season lasted so long? Why has every step forward required so much patience? Why does it feel like every breakthrough comes with another challenge? Those are honest questions. Questions many people carry deep inside but rarely speak aloud. And sometimes, the answer isn't found in the struggle itself. It's found in the person the struggle is quietly shaping. Every difficult season teaches something comfort never could. Every delay reveals something speed would have hidden. Every quiet moment invites you to become someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than you were before. That doesn't erase the pain, but it reminds us that pain is not always the end of the story. Sometimes, it's only the beginning of a transformation that cannot be rushed. Take a moment right now. If you've ever walked through a season that changed you forever, write in the comments, "I'm still standing." Not to prove anything to anyone, but as a reminder to yourself that every difficult chapter you've survived has already become part of your testimony. Because here's something remarkable. Many people believe courage means never feeling afraid. It doesn't. Real courage is choosing to keep moving even when fear is sitting beside you. It's choosing kindness after disappointment, choosing hope after heartbreak, choosing faith when certainty is nowhere to be found. Those choices may seem small in the moment, but repeated day after day, they become the foundation of a completely different future. And perhaps that's the part we rarely notice. Transformation is almost never loud. It happens quietly, like dawn replacing the darkness, like a seed growing beneath the soil where no one can see it, like a heart becoming stronger long before anyone recognizes the change. You may not realize it yet, but every season you've survived has been preparing you to carry something greater than you imagined. Not because life will suddenly become easy, but because you are no longer the same person who entered the storm. And what comes next may change the way you see every chapter you've left behind. There is something almost no one talks about. The strongest people rarely become strong during their victories. They become strong during the seasons when nobody is applauding them. The seasons when every morning begins with another unanswered question, and every night ends with another silent prayer. If you've ever lived through a season like that, then you already know something many people never discover. Growth is often invisible. It happens beneath the surface, long before anyone else can see it. Looking back now, you may remember moments when everything seemed to be falling apart. Plans suddenly changed. People you trusted walked away. Opportunities disappeared without explanation. The future became uncertain, and for a while, it felt as though life itself had stopped moving. But what if those moments weren't empty? What if they were quietly preparing you for something your earlier self wasn't ready to carry? That thought changes everything, because preparation rarely feels exciting while you're living through it. It feels frustrating. It feels unfair. Sometimes, it even feels lonely. Yet history is filled with people whose greatest chapters were written only after their longest seasons of waiting. Waiting teaches things success never can. It teaches patience. It teaches wisdom. It teaches humility. And perhaps most importantly, it teaches you to recognize what truly matters when everything unnecessary begins to fall away. Take a moment and think about who you were a few years ago. Would that version of yourself have handled today's challenges with the same perspective? Probably not. Because every difficult season has quietly changed the way you see the world. It has made you slower to judge, quicker to appreciate, more grateful for peace than for applause, more interested in purpose than in recognition. That kind of transformation cannot be bought. It cannot be borrowed. It can only be lived. If this speaks to your journey, leave a comment saying, "Every season taught me something." Sometimes writing those words isn't for everyone else. Sometimes it's a reminder to yourself that none of your struggles were meaningless. Here's something remarkable. Many people spend their lives chasing comfort, but comfort rarely changes anyone. Challenges do, not because pain is good, but because adversity has a way of revealing strengths we never knew existed. Think about every moment you almost gave up, every moment you questioned your direction, every moment you wondered whether all your effort was leading anywhere at all. You survived every single one of those moments, not perfectly, not without tears, not without fear, but you survived. And survival has a strange way of creating quiet confidence, not the loud confidence that demands attention, but the steady confidence that whispers, "I've been through difficult days before, and I made it." That voice becomes stronger with every challenge you overcome. Little by little, without realizing it, you stop depending on perfect circumstances to find peace instead. Peace begins growing from within. That's when something extraordinary starts to happen. The disappointments that once would have broken your spirit begin losing their power. The opinions that once kept you awake at night no longer control your decisions. The fears that once felt overwhelming start becoming smaller than the hope you've been building day by day. That doesn't mean life suddenly becomes easy. It means you become different. You respond differently. You think differently. You carry yourself differently. And people around you begin noticing a quiet strength they cannot quite explain, not because you've become louder, but because you've become steadier. There is a confidence that only comes from walking through difficult seasons and discovering that they did not define your future. Perhaps that's the greatest surprise of all. The storm you thought would destroy your story may actually become the chapter that gives your story its deepest meaning, because every challenge leaves behind a lesson, every lesson builds character, and every step forward prepares you for a future you cannot yet fully see. So don't underestimate what this season has been doing inside you. Some of the most important changes in life happen silently, like roots growing beneath a tree before anyone sees its branches, like sunrise slowly replacing the darkness before the world even notices the light. The preparation has been quiet, but it has been real, and what comes next may reveal why none of it was ever wasted. There comes a moment, not loud, not dramatic, not announced with flashing signs, when everything you've been carrying suddenly begins to make sense. It doesn't happen because the world changes overnight. It happens because you have changed. For so long, you thought the waiting was punishment. You thought the closed doors meant rejection. You thought the silence meant abandonment. But now, standing where you are today, you begin seeing those same moments through completely different eyes. What once looked like delay now looks like protection. What once felt like loss now looks like redirection. And what once seemed impossible to understand starts revealing a purpose that could never have been seen from the beginning. This is one of life's greatest mysteries. We always ask for answers, long before we're ready to understand them. Imagine handing a child the blueprint for a skyscraper. The plans would seem confusing, complicated, meaningless, not because the blueprint is wrong, but because the child hasn't yet grown into the understanding required to read it. Life often works the same way. Some answers only become clear after you've grown into the person capable of receiving them. And perhaps that's exactly what has been happening to you all along. Every disappointment, every unexpected delay, every difficult goodbye, every lonely season has quietly been expanding your perspective, not to break your spirit, but to prepare your vision. Because there are some blessings that become dangerous if they arrive too early. Success without wisdom can become pride. Influence without character can become destruction. Opportunity without maturity can become regret. That's why true preparation is never only about changing your circumstances, it's about changing you. The future isn't simply waiting for your arrival, it has been waiting for your growth. Think about that for a moment. If everything you wanted had happened exactly when you first asked for it, would you have appreciated it the same way? Would you have protected it? Would you have handled it wisely? Or would you have treated it like something ordinary? Sometimes, the greatest gift isn't receiving what you asked for quickly. It's becoming someone who can carry that gift without losing yourself. That's a transformation few people ever recognize. Most people measure progress by what they have. Very few measure progress by who they have become. But character always outlasts circumstances. Because circumstances change, character remains. And when life begins opening new doors, character decides what happens after you walk through them. Maybe that's why the strongest people rarely need to prove anything. They've already survived battles no one else saw. Their confidence isn't built on applause. It's built on experience, the kind of experience that whispers, "I've already overcome things I once believed would destroy me." That quiet confidence cannot be taken away, not by criticism, not by failure, not by uncertainty, because it no longer depends on perfect outcomes. It depends on knowing who you've become. If this message is speaking directly to your heart, leave a comment below saying, "I was being prepared." Not because the words themselves have power, but because sometimes declaring your growth helps you recognize how far you've already come. Now here's something remarkable. The people around you may only notice your recent progress. They may celebrate your new opportunities. They may admire your calmness, your wisdom, your strength, but they'll never fully understand the invisible journey that created those qualities. They didn't see the nights you questioned everything. They didn't hear the silent conversations you had with yourself. They didn't witness the moments when giving up felt easier than moving forward. Yet you kept going, one step, then another, and now, without even realizing it, you're becoming the kind of person your past self desperately needed. That's the hidden miracle of every difficult season. It doesn't simply change your future, it transforms your identity. You become more patient, more compassionate, more resilient, more grateful, not because life became easier, but because you discovered a strength that comfort could never teach. And perhaps the greatest surprise is still ahead, because preparation always points toward purpose. Roots grow before branches, foundations are laid before buildings rise. The deepest rivers flow quietly before anyone notices their power. Your preparation has not been random. Every lesson, every delay, every unexpected turn has been shaping something far greater than you could see at the time. So if you've been wondering whether any of it mattered, let this be your reminder. Nothing that strengthened your character was ever wasted. Nothing that taught you wisdom was ever meaningless. Nothing that made you more resilient was ever pointless. One day, you'll look back on this chapter, not as the season that almost defeated you, but as the season that quietly built the person you were always meant to become. And when that day comes, you'll finally understand why the preparation had to happen before the promise. Because the greatest victories aren't given to the strongest people. They're entrusted to the people who were willing to grow while nobody was watching. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what this season has been doing in your life all along. And then, something begins to happen. Not all at once, not in a single dramatic moment, but quietly, almost unexpectedly, the doors that refused to move for so long begin opening one by one. At first, you almost don't believe it. You've become so familiar with waiting that progress feels unfamiliar. You've spent so much time preparing that stepping into something new feels almost uncomfortable. But this is what growth does. It prepares you so thoroughly that when the opportunity finally arrives, you don't recognize it immediately. Because after a long season of endurance, your expectations have changed. You no longer chase every opportunity. You become more careful, more intentional, more aware that not every open door leads to the right destination, and that wisdom may be one of the greatest rewards your journey has given you. Years ago, you may have said yes to anything that looked exciting, anything that promised recognition, anything that seemed like success. But now, you've learned something deeper. Not every opportunity deserves your energy. Not every invitation deserves your attention. Not every path deserves your footsteps. Sometimes, the greatest act of courage is knowing when to walk away. That kind of discernment cannot be taught overnight. It is earned through disappointment, earned through mistakes, earned through experiences that forced you to slow down and ask, what truly matters? And once that question becomes part of your life, everything begins to change. Your priorities shift. Your relationships become more meaningful. Your decisions become less emotional and more purposeful. You stop trying to impress everyone. You start focusing on becoming someone you can respect when no one is watching. Because you've discovered a truth that many people spend decades chasing. Peace is more valuable than popularity. Purpose is more valuable than applause. Integrity is more valuable than instant success. The world often celebrates people for what they achieve, but life quietly rewards people for who they become. There is a difference. Achievements can disappear, titles can change, money can come and go, recognition fades, but character follows you into every new chapter. It becomes the foundation beneath every future success. Imagine building a magnificent house. From the outside, Everything looks beautiful. The walls shine, the windows sparkle. The design captures everyone's attention. But if the foundation is weak, time will eventually expose what appearances tried to hide. Your life works the same way. The unseen foundation always determines how much you can safely carry. Perhaps that's why your preparation lasted longer than you expected. Not because you were forgotten, but because your foundation was still being strengthened. Strong foundations take time. They require patience. They require pressure. They require seasons when nothing visible seems to be happening. Yet beneath the surface, everything important is taking shape. Think about a tree. No one celebrates the roots. No one takes pictures of them. No one admires what grows underground. Yet without deep roots, the tallest tree cannot survive the strongest storm. Maybe your hidden season was never about being overlooked. Maybe it was about growing roots that would hold you steady when greater responsibilities finally arrived. Because greater influence always requires greater stability. Greater opportunities require greater wisdom. Greater blessings require greater maturity. Otherwise, the very thing you've been hoping for could become the very thing that overwhelms you. Now look back once more, not with regret, not with sadness, but with gratitude. Notice how every difficult chapter gave you something valuable. One season taught patience, another taught resilience, another taught compassion, another taught courage. At the time, they felt like setbacks. Now, they look like preparation. That is one of life's greatest surprises. The pieces only fit together after you've walked far enough to see the whole picture. You were never collecting random experiences. You were collecting lessons, and every lesson has been quietly shaping the person standing here today. If these words reflect your own journey, take a moment to write in the comments, "My foundation is strong." Not to convince anyone else, but to remind yourself that everything you've endured has built something inside you that cannot be seen, yet can never be taken away. Because real strength isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't need constant recognition. Real strength is calm, steady, patient, unshaken. It keeps moving forward, even when no one is watching. And perhaps that quiet strength is exactly what this next chapter will require. Because the opportunities ahead of you will not simply test your abilities, they will test your character. And thanks to everything you've already survived, you are far more prepared than you realize. The waiting wasn't empty. The silence wasn't pointless. The difficult seasons weren't meaningless. They were laying the foundation for everything that comes next. And in the next chapter, we'll explore something even more remarkable. Because once preparation is complete, a new responsibility begins, not just to carry your own strength, but to become a source of strength for others who are still walking through the seasons you've already survived. And now, here you are, not at the end of the journey, but at the beginning of a completely new chapter. If you've stayed with this message until this very moment, perhaps it isn't because you were searching for easy answers. Perhaps it's because deep inside, you've always believed there had to be a reason for everything you've lived through. And maybe that quiet belief is exactly what has carried you farther than you realize. Think back to the person you were when this journey began. The doubts, the uncertainty, the unanswered questions, the moments when you wondered if you had enough strength to keep going. Now compare that version of yourself to the person listening today. The circumstances may not be perfect. Life may still have challenges. Some questions may still remain unanswered, but something has changed. You have changed. You've become stronger without becoming harder, wiser without becoming bitter, more patient without giving up hope, more resilient without losing your kindness. Those are victories that cannot be measured by money, by titles, or by recognition, because they are victories of the heart. And those are the victories that last. There is an old truth that many people overlook. The greatest transformations rarely happen in a single moment. They happen one decision at a time, one difficult day at a time, one act of courage at a time, one choice to keep moving forward, even when the destination isn't visible. Looking back, you may realize that your life wasn't shaped by one extraordinary event. It was shaped by hundreds of ordinary moments when you refused to quit. Those moments became habits. Those habits became character, and that character became your greatest strength. Now imagine someone standing where you once stood, discouraged, confused, wondering whether all their effort matters. Without saying a word, your life has already become proof that difficult seasons do not last forever. Sometimes, the most powerful encouragement isn't advice, it's an example. Your journey reminds people that growth is possible, that healing is possible, that hope is possible. Not because everything became easy, but because you chose not to stop. And perhaps that has always been the true meaning of strength. Not never falling, not never struggling, but always finding the courage to rise one more time. Life will continue bringing new challenges, new opportunities, new seasons, but you won't meet them as the person you used to be. You'll meet them as someone who has already discovered that difficult chapters are not permanent. You've learned that fear doesn't have to make your decisions, that failure doesn't define your future, that waiting doesn't mean life has stopped, and that every season, whether joyful or painful, can leave behind wisdom that no classroom could ever teach. Maybe that's why your story matters. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Real growth, real perseverance, real transformation. And those are the stories people never forget. As you leave this message today, carry one simple thought with you. The impossible isn't always something standing in your way. Sometimes, the impossible is simply the place where your greatest growth begins. The mountain that seemed too high taught you how to climb. The storm that seemed endless taught you how to endure. The silence that once frightened you taught you how to listen. Nothing was wasted, not the waiting, not the setbacks, not the disappointments, not even the moments when you questioned yourself. Every step has become part of the person you are today. So whatever chapter you're walking into next, walk into it with quiet confidence. Not because you know exactly what tomorrow holds, but because you've already proven that you can face whatever tomorrow brings. The strongest people are not those who never face the impossible. They are the ones who walked through it, learned from it, and came out carrying a strength that no one can take away. If this message encouraged you, take a moment to write in the comments, "I didn't fail, I grew." Someone else may read those words and find the hope they needed today. And if this journey has reminded you that your difficult seasons were never meaningless, share this message with someone who may be wondering whether they have the strength to keep going. You never know. A single message at the right moment can become the turning point in someone's story. Thank you for spending these moments here. Keep moving forward. Keep growing. Keep believing that every challenge carries the possibility of becoming tomorrow's greatest lesson.